ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
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 नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव
नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी।
तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। चैतन्यमोक्षं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकलामयं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम्। देहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवं श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकाकान्त
तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि। वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यः च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
श्री
कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
So I would like to welcome all the devotees who are attending today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. So this class is on verse 35, which is the third verse of the Chaturshloki, which is from Canto 2, Chapter 9. So I'm presenting this based on the teachings of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So I would like to seek the blessings of Guru Gauranga and all the assembled Vaishnavas before I start to speak on this verse. So before starting this verse, I would like to give a quick overview of the chapter 9, what we have been doing in the chapter 9. So in the chapter 9, the first 3 verses actually talk about the relationship between the eternal soul and this material body. And the verses from 4 to 18, they talk about actually the Lord reveals Vaikuntha to Brahma. Brahma was actually meditating on the Lord because he was given the word tapa to meditate on, and Brahma was sitting and meditating, and the Lord actually was pleased with the meditation of Lord, with meditation of Brahma, and he disclosed his spiritual world to him. So that we have seen in verses 4 to 18, and then from verses 9 to 30, Lord actually expresses his pleasure to Brahma, and then Brahma actually asks few questions to Lord. Actually, he asks 4 questions, and then the Lord replies those questions from verses 31 to 36, of which verses 33 to 36 comprises of Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. That means Lord actually compacts all Bhagavatam into these 4 verses. And then from verse 38 to 46, we see that the Lord departs and Brahma recreates the universe as it was previously, because this is the next day of Brahma. So it was previously, it was there, and then Lord Brahma is creating it again. So I would like to give an overview of the last 2 verses of Chaturshloki before going to the 35th verse. So in the 33rd verse, actually, if you see, the theme is summarized as jnana. It is knowledge. That means to know the personal form of the Lord is more confidential than realization of the personal form. So it is like in the first 33rd verse, the, the Lord was actually describes saying that I existed before everything was there, and whatever you see is me. Now, whatever you are seeing is I, and after the annihilation, what you see is I. So, here the Lord is specifying 3 times aham, aham, aham. So, he's specifying his personal form, he's specifying his personal existence. It is not like he's not saying that the Brahman is existing. He's saying I existed personally, and I exist after the annihilation. And not what you see is I. So here the first I refers to the Lord, the second I refers to the living entity, and the third I, aham, refers to the relationship between the living entities and the Lord. And here, why we say the personal form is more confidential than realizing the personal form is based on the intelligence or intellectual gymnastics. The ordinary person may actually try to go up to the Brahman realization, but the real knowledge is beyond the Brahman realization, which is very, 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 very confidential. And that is actually the personal form of the Lord. So, and that is actually the real knowledge. Okay. And then in the next verse, the theme is Vijnana. So, realizing this subtle science occurs by the Lord's grace. So, actually, in the verse, what it says is anything that which exists, and if you think that there is no relationship of that with the Lord, then it is actually illusion. Because in the previous verse, Lord said, whatever exists is I. Whatever is existing is I. And the next verse, he is saying, if somebody thinks that there is something which is not in relation to the Lord, then it is actually illusion. That is Maya. So actually, in the material world, everybody is tossed with this illusory energy. Because for one to experience or one to enjoy something, right, they should actually try to see it different from the Lord. That's why the Maya potency is acting on all these living entities to make them see things disconnected from the Lord so that they can enjoy. But then they are tossed left and right in this material world. Then how can they actually gain the real knowledge? How can they actually gain the real knowledge as Lord specified the jnana? How can they gain? How can they realize that knowledge? It's only when they have a higher taste. Maya is a lower taste. Only when they have a higher taste. Only when they have the love for the Lord. Only then they can realize this jnana. Whatever the Lord is talking in the first one, they can realize that jnana. And that happens by only Lord's grace. Because it cannot happen easily. Like in Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says, Daiviyesha gunamami, maya duratyaya, mam eva hi prapadyante, maya metam tarandite. This Maya, this energy which is acting on all of us to keep us in this material world, is actually divine. And only through my mercy, you can get out of it. Only, that means, when you come out of the Maya, that means you can see things as it is, connected to the Supreme Lord. That means you can know that everything belongs to Lord. That means now you are in full knowledge. So that revelation, that realization can happen only through the mercy of the Lord. And when will the Lord give mercy? When will the Lord give mercy? Is actually explained in the next verse. That is Sarahasyam. Sarahasyam refers to the secret, confidential, or mysterious. So in the third verse, this is the topic of our discussion today. So for the Lord to show the mercy on us, we actually need to get to that. We have to develop that prema bhakti towards Him. When we develop that prema bhakti towards Him, then the Lord shows His mercy through which we realize. That development of prema bhakti is the hint of the third verse. And how you develop that prema bhakti? How you develop that prema bhakti is tad angam, is the next, is actually by practice of the devotional service. That is actually described in the fourth verse. So actually, if you see, before answering all the four, the Chaturshloki, Lord actually cites this in the 31st verse itself. It's actually the beautiful. We go through that. So, yeah. So in the 31st verse, Lord says, Jnanam param guhyam me yat vijnana samanvitam sarhasyam tadangam cha grihana garitam maya. So he revealed all the four things. He said Jnanam, which is param guhyam. It's supremely confidential. The knowledge about me is supremely confidential. That he hinted. That he is actually expanding in the first verse. Second, yad vijnana samanvitam. Yad vijnana, how to realize that vijnana. That samanvitam, that means in coordination with the devotional service. In coordination with the devotional service, then you actually get to the rahasya. That rahasya is the love of God. But as you perform the devotional service. So let us go back. The fourth verse, you perform the devotional service. And then the next one, you develop that love for the God in the third. So in the second one, once you have developed the love of the God, Lord shows His mercy and you actually realize the truth. What is that truth? That which is explained in the first verse. Now is a flow clear? Okay. Now let's go to the third verse, which is the topic of our discussion today. So repeat after me. Yata mahanti bhutani bhuteshu chavacheshvanu pravishtani apravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham. Translation, Srila Prabhupada. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created and at the same time I am outside of everything. So actually the first picture is that will to some extent depict that how all the universal elements are actually entering into the cosmos and at the same time they do not enter. We'll see the details in the next slide. And the second picture, you see, the Lord is saying, similarly, I myself exist within everything created. As you can see in the picture, there are all innumerable universes that are coming out from the pores of Mahavishnu. And the Lord is entering into each of them. And then at the same time, I am outside of everything. And you can see that the Lord is existing in the spiritual world, in the Goloka Vrindavan, in all the Vaikuntha planets. So now we will discuss what it means. So these are the points which I have taken from Srila Prabhupada's purport. So, so these elements exist outside the cosmos and are used in the universe to construct all the things. So all these elements. So if you see the bodies, if you see the body of the sea, the mountain, the human beings, the demigods, all of them have a certain type of body. And this body is nothing but a combination, a different combination and permutations of the elements which have entered into the cosmos. Does that mean when all the elements enter into the cosmos, there is a vacancy created in the spiritual realm? No. In the material world, let's say, if you take a lump of clay and if you start making a pots, as you start making the pots, actually the lump of the clay decreases. And also, Prabhupada gives another example. When you try to build a big skyscraper, that means somewhere or other you are digging a hole because that material you are using here. But That is not the case, because this the principal elements exist in the spiritual world, and as it is confirmed in the Ishopanishad, like Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. So the Lord is Purnam, and innumerable Purnams come out of it, but still the Lord is Purnam. So from this Ishopanishad invocation verse, we can see that even though all these elements come into the cosmos, but still Lord is Purnam. That means these elements exist within the Lord as well. And there is and this we can see also from Brahma's realization. Prior to this, Lord has shown the whole of spiritual world to the Brahma. And Brahma also said in the verse that Brahma actually saw the energies in terms of like 4, 16, and 5. And Prabhupada describes in the purport what those energies are. Actually, the 5 are nothing but the elements. 5 elements, that earth, water, fire, air, ether. The personification of those principal elements are there along with the Lord. So this clearly shows that when the elements enter into the cosmos,
that seed color was that gold color.
so there is always a counterpart of these elements. The source of these elements will still be there, and it is always Purna, even though the elements come into the cosmos, but still there is cycle. So this particular part is clear, right? And also there is an example of Rama Devi and Chaya Devi, because the Rama Devi is actually the consort of Mahavishnu, right? The spiritual side. But then on the material side, she expands into Chaya Devi to carry out this material creation, everything. Does that mean Rama Devi doesn't exist when she comes as Chaya Devi? No, Rama Devi still exists, but there's an expansion. Similarly, when the elements come into the cosmos, they are still there, but the elements still go, but they are still there within the Lord. Because the Lord is Purna. So, and then the second part of the verse says, the Lord says, similarly, I exist outside of the creation in the Goloka Vrindavan, and I also exist in each and every atom of the creation that has scattered all over the. So, and then I exist in fullness within each and every atom. I think this is like mind-boggling. This is like inconceivable to us. This is like Achintya Shakti. No matter what we try to do, we cannot understand this Achintya Shakti. So now the broad, actually in the verse, Lord is hinting us how to understand this Achintya Shakti is only through Prema Bhakti. That's what. No. Actually, before going to that, there is also another verse in Sri Brahma Samhita in 35th verse. So I would like to recite that verse. So it is एकोप्यसौ रचयितुं जगदण्डकोटिं यच्चक्तिरस्ति जगदण्डजयादनन्तः अण्डान्तरस्थपरमानुजयान्तरस्थं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं भजामि. This particular verse, Andantarastha So that means Lord is expanding within this universal scale. He is entering into this universes, andas, these universes, and within the universes he is actually entering into each and every atom, and he is existing there in fullness. This This is confirmed by Lord Brahma in the Brahma Samhita. And one more thing we should see to understand this is these cosmic bodies, when they actually came out of Mahavishnu, they were actually small balls, but they actually develop, grow. So anything that grows, as we see in this material world, like when we take birth, we were actually very small, but we also keep growing. The growing of this cosmic bodies or the growing of our material bodies is possible only because of the existing of the soul. Our material bodies grow, they live for a certain time, they produce byproducts, right? They dwindle, they vanish, the material, because they are growing just because of the presence of the soul. Similarly, the cosmic, these worlds, these bodies actually grow and they exist because of the presence of the Lord. As the Lord is saying in the second part of the verse, similarly, I enter into the cosmos. Because the Lord is pervading as Paramatma into all these atoms. But at the same time, he is actually situated in the Goloka Vrindavan in his personal form. Because the Lord is pervading through into all these atoms, the impersonalists may conclude, oh, Lord doesn't have any form. Lord may not have any form. So, and they try to do all intellectual gymnastics to find out or to see the Lord, but they're not able to see the Lord. That's why they conclude that the Lord doesn't have any form. That is actually the rahasya. So the Lord is saying here, okay, in order to untie this, in order to know, actually, to understand this Achintya Shakti of the Lord, one has to develop the love of the God. That is actually the system. That is the Prema Bhakti. One has to develop that Prema Bhakti. So when one develops the Prema Bhakti, only to those the Lord actually reveals. So even in Brahma Samhita, it is clearly disclosed. In the fifth verse, 38th, in the 5th chapter, Brahma Samhita, 38th verse. Here clearly Lord is saying, प्रेमाञ्जन चुरित भक्ति विलोचनेन सन्तः सदैव हृदयेषु विलोकयन्ति यं श्याम सुन्दर वचित्य गुणस्वरूपं गोविन्दवादिभूषं तमहं भजामि. So here the Lord is saying Premanjana Churita, like for the devotees whose eyes are anointed with love, to that devotees I make myself visible. So that is actually bhakti. How can one get anointed with that love? Only when they perform the devotional service, they will come to that state. Then the Lord will give his mercy so that they can actually see the Lord within their heart. It is like, Prabhupada also writes, it is like all the activities that Lord is doing in the spiritual world. It's not only the Lord, they can see not only the Lord, but everything, all the activities that the Lord is doing in the spiritual world is actually enacted in the heart of the devotee. It's like televisionized. Prabhupada uses the word televisionized. Like for a lay person, just to understand, like if something is happening at a distance place, he can actually capture that and he can see it in the television. Actually, this is what happens in a more realistic way. Even though the pastimes are happening millions, zillions, we don't even know the distance, how far it is. And there is a live telecast. At the same time, the devotee can see the complete pastimes of the Lord within their heart. Only because they have developed that Prema Bhakti. That is a rahasya. Once you develop the Prema Bhakti, then that rahasya will let you understand the Achintya Shakti of the Lord. So this vision, it will show you everything. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela of the Lords within the heart of the devotee. So This vision is the real mystery of the spiritual knowledge. That's why if you see, the Lord has actually hinted in the 31st verse is Sarahasyam Tadangam. That is the rahasya. That rahasyam part is actually, he hinted that. That rahasyam is like prema bhakti. And Tad angam means of that prema bhakti, angam means limb. What is that limb? That is practicing devotional service. So this is a big practice of the devotional service. This sadhana bhakti is an anga, limb of this prema bhakti. That means through sadhana bhakti, you actually develop prema bhakti. And when you develop prema bhakti, then the Lord actually mercifully, he actually gives his mercy, through which everything is realized. The true knowledge, the jnana is actually realized about the absolute is realized. Okay. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this verse is actually given a beautiful explanation for this verse. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord says, Ateva Bhagavate 18 khaya. Ateva Bhagavate 18 khaya. And he says, in Bhagavatam, there are only 3 subject matters. 3 kaya. Subject matters explained. That is Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. So, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami nicely summarizes these 4 verses into these 3 topics. Because these 4 verses constitutes of Srimad Bhagavatam. Entire Srimad Bhagavatam is compacted in this 4 verses. So, the Sambandha, so the Jnana and the Vijnana, the 33rd and the 34th verse constitutes the Sambandha. Sambandha means for the knowledge of the Lord, the relationship with the Lord. And the next verse, Abhideya, is actually the last verse. Abhideya is, okay, how to practice that. That is a devotional service. That is the last verse. Abhideya is last verse. And then 35th verse, the topic of our discussion, is actually the Prayojana. What is Prayojana? The goal. What is the goal? To attain the love of the God. That is a good goal. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami nicely summarizes these 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam into Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. And Prabhupada also calls out very nice things. He says, Lord may award liberation to anyone and everyone, but he rarely awards the prema, this love. Why? Why does the Lord awards this prema very rarely? The Prabhupada says, because this is the most mysterious, it is the most confidential, and it is the most wonderful thing. And it can only be understood or revealed through the practice of devotional service. That's why Lord only reveals this to the one who is practicing devotional service, not to anyone and everyone. And the people who are practicing the pure devotional service are very, 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 very rare. Like they are like the touchstones. Touchstone is very, very rare. So the pure devotees are like the touchstone, very rare. So that's why the Lord does not reveal it to anyone and everyone. And that this he confirms in Bhagavad Gita also to Arjuna. In the 1864, he says, in 1867, he says to Arjuna, do not disclose this to the people who are not practicing devotional service, to the people who are not devoted, to the people who are not following austerity, to the people who are envious. If you see in the material world, most of the people are like this. But he says, he requests that give this knowledge to the one who is actually sadhakas, who is practicing devotional service. And the reason for the Lord to reveal this to Arjuna is a very devotee of the Lord and he is a friend of the Lord. He is dear to the Lord. So that's why you need to give this knowledge to the people who have faith in the Lord, faith in the Lord's words, not to anyone and everyone. And when somebody attains this love of Godhead, then it actually binds the Lord within their heart for eternity. So Lord reserves himself not to give it to anyone. Although he wishes, but then he says he doesn't want to give it to anybody because they don't understand it. They don't value it. It is like if you give a touchstone to somebody who doesn't even know what a touchstone is, what is the use of it? Only a touchstone should be given to a person who knows the value of it. So you will only know the value of it through the devotional service. Have little faith, and through the devotion and through practice of the devotional service, you will develop that love of God. And when you develop that love of God, and the Lord will reveal. This is what exactly happened to Brahma also. Brahma actually, when he was created, when Brahma was created, he was like actually wandering here and there. There was darkness everywhere. He didn't know what to do. And then he heard these two syllables, tapa, tapa. He heard that twice. And then he took that to be divine. Okay, this is the instruction from the divine. So let me sit down and meditate. So the meditation what Brahma did is actually the pure devotional service. The austerity is what he has undergone. Because in the world, many people might undergo austerity. Some people might do some austerity just to counteract their sins. But if you see why Brahma did this austerity, if you see the consciousness of Brahma, he wanted to create the material world for the pleasure of the Lord. So that is the consciousness of Brahma. And when the Lord saw that consciousness of the Brahma, and he also saw that he is taking all kinds of pain and austerity to just satisfy me, this actually melted Lord's heart. Then Lord was so pleased with Brahma. And then the Lord showered his mercy, through which Brahma could actually see the entire spiritual world, entire Vaikuntha planets. Right? So from this process, we clearly understand that devotional service is the root. Only through the devotional service, one can unlock the rahasya. One has to come to the prema bhakti state. Then only that will unlock. And then you can see the achintya shakti of the Lord. Lord will show how he is present in the spiritual world and how he is there in the material world simultaneously. Okay. And what are the outcomes of one who obtains this prema bhakti? Prabhupada calls this out. It keeps the deserving devotee always wrapped in psychological activities. That means they are completely, always their mind is completely thinking of the Lord. Take the examples of the gopis. Right? They are completely, constantly, always thinking of the Lord, whatever they are doing. They are always in touch with the absolute truth. Not even for a moment they are away from it. This is the outcome of attaining this prema bhakti. And as the Lord is Achyuta, that means infallible. So whatever the Lord desires, since the Lord is Achyuta, it will happen. And the same thing will happen for the devotees who have attained this prema bhakti. Whatever they desire, that will happen. Of course, they won't desire anything material. They will only desire things to please the Lord. They will only desire things to please the Lord. Just in case of Brahma. Brahma also desired to create the material world for the pleasure of the Lord. The Lord's sanction. So he's happy. So whatever they desire, it will happen. Even Brahma discloses to Narada. He says, whatever I desire, it happened because I have attained the pure love of God. So that is, Lord is Achyuta, and even these pure devotees are Achyuta. In case of their desires, whatever they desire, the Lord will fulfill. As Brahmaji confirms to Narada, my desires are never unfulfilled. That means they are always fulfilled because I am always absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, though I don't have any material desires. So these are the outcomes of obtaining the prema bhakti. And then now, after hearing all these things, we are thinking, how can we obtain? Or who is actually really qualified to get this Prema Bhakti? So Prabhupada calls that out. Who will have the chance to understand this mystery of the Lord? So if one is fortunate to have received the knowledge in the transcendental disciplic succession, so one should receive this knowledge in the transcendental disciplic succession. Why? Because if you see, Lord Brahma explains this knowledge to Narada. And Narada actually takes this knowledge and then gives this Chaturshloki knowledge to Vyasa Maharshi. And he asks Vyasa Maharshi to meditate on this. Because when Vyasa Maharshi was despondent, he has compiled all the scriptures, Vedic scriptures, but he's not satisfied. Then Narada Muni comes and tells him to meditate on this. So, because Vyasa Maharshi was pure devotee, when he was meditating on this, the Lord revealed the entire Bhagavatam within his heart of this 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam within the heart of Vyasa Maharshi, which Vyasa Maharshi has compiled, and then which was taught to Shukadeva Goswami, and Shukadeva Goswami is talking to Parikshit Maharaj, and the same Bhagavatam is being taught by Suta Goswami to the Saunaka Rishi and all other rishis in the Naimisharanya. So it is actually coming in a disciplic succession without any change. So the Lord's mercy will flow through the disciples. In the material world, we cannot get the mercy. The Lord's mercy only comes through the disciplic succession. So one has to follow the disciplic succession in order to understand, in order to get to the level of Prema Bhakti and understand the Lord. So I would like to summarize. And then actually the next verse, what Balaram Prabhu is going to talk in next week, is how to get to the Rahasya, to the Prema Bhakti, is by performing meditational service. He will expand more in this verse. So a quick summary of this verse is, the Lord is existing simultaneously in the material world, is pervading all over the material world as Paramatma, and he is simultaneously in the spiritual world and acting his pastimes. And this is an inconceivable thing for us. We cannot understand by our senses. The only way to understand this is by performing devotional service. Only if you attain the love of God, then you will be able to realize this by the mercy of the Lord. And how to attain the Prema Bhakti is in the next. So thank you all. And I have kept one more slide. This is actually because this 35th verse has been expanded in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela. It has been expanded from as 4 verses into 4 verses. That is from 124 to 127. So since I thought I wouldn't have much time to discuss about that, I kept it as the appendix. So just let us read. We have 5 more minutes, so just let us recite go through the translations of these. So the supreme affection for me, here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking. Supreme affection for me is called love of the Godhead, and that is the ultimate goal of life. Let me explain by a practical example the natural characteristics of such love. The 5 material elements are existing inside and outside of every living entity. Similarly, I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, am manifest within the heart of the devotees as well as outside his body. This actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes the same verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. The next, as the material elements enter the bodies of all the living entities, yet remain outside of them. I exist within the material creation, and yet I am outside of them. And then a highly elevated devotee can bind me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the heart by love. Wherever he looks, he sees me and nothing else. So, to understand this Achintya Shakti of how the Lord is existing simultaneously in the spiritual world and the material world is only possible through the pure love. That is the hint there. It's only through the pure love. And when they are anointed, the devotees are anointed with this pure love, then they can actually see the Lord within their heart. When seeing the Lord means it is not just the Lord, because the Lord is not alone. Lord means is Nama, Rupa, Leela, Guna, and Leela. Everything. Its entire entourage, his entire past tense, his entire spiritual world is enacted or it's televisionized within the heart of it. So, thank you so much. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Very nice talk. Thank you.
Hey boy.
Stop the track. Any questions?
Deciding or your question or deciding? Nice place. No more questions.
No questions. All questions are answered.
Sorry.
Oh, I really liked it. I thought, I understand a little bit more now. The way you explained it was very nice. I didn't understand ways you taught.
Thank you. So I would like to thank Madhav Chandra Prabhu for because I heard his class and that was the basis for me to develop this. So
Yeah, I like
Madhav Chandra Prabhu has to, he is
explained in the Sambandh of the
Yeah, that
players.
also good. Actually, the backup supporting slokas are good, nice.
Yeah.
You supported all those things. Those are nice explanations.
those actually most of them were called out by Prabhupada in upper course itself. And I used Guruji Prabhu's unveiling his Lotus Street book. That is very, very, very helpful. Very, very, very helpful. Without that, it would have been like. Yeah. And I couldn't hear much, but I could hear hardly like one or two lectures on this topic. Because the material was so much actually. It's like you can talk for 2-3 hours. Actually, I only gave only the gist of it. 2-3 hours you can talk.
How many pages per foot of this?
How many pages?
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4
3 or
pages.
4 hours. Everything.
Yeah, I even that condensed that because in 45 minutes you cannot speak all of them.
That's why the 135.
So we'll recite the.
Yeah, sure.
You start.
And one more beauty actually, what I felt is while I was reading,